Hi everybody, the Mature Simmer here. So welcome back to Farmers Only Club as I'm moving along here, continuing to try to make some progress. So 5:53 a.m. you can see here in the spring. So trying to figure out, the farmer suggested a heading of 125, but I'm not sure that any of that makes a lot of sense at this point, because it's just a big field in the middle of something. So I'm half tempted to just say, you know, I'm gonna go down. There we go. We're at 180. So I think it's gonna work one way or the other. But it's 5,000 an hour. I don't know, let me see. If I do 125, let's see what that looks like. Because I think what that's going to do is it's going to... right. That was about where we needed to be. So let's see. So we'll try what they're suggesting. So I see what they're talking about because you're going diagonally, but to me, this is a bit of a misnomer in that it's like, well, it's going to work, but you're going to hit thinner and thinner areas later, so I'm just not entirely sure. I don't know, I'm trying to debate because pretty much everywhere from this line on, every pass is going to be shorter. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with my original thought, where I just go to north-south. So let me see if I'm right about there. We'll do this type of line here, and we'll do that. I think that will actually be, I don't know, mentally better. Let's go with that thought. So, because I think some of it is, well, you know, you'll be having less of a turnaround with the trees, but I'm not entirely sure that that would pan out properly anyway. So, certainly not the best option I've got as far as the best pay I've gotten, but more important thing is it's the only contract out there right now, which is normal. So I've had one really high day. Even someone commented, like, having 8 contracts out at once is pretty unique. And that's kind of what we were at in the last couple days in some cases. But this was the only one out that wasn't taken. There was another contract that's being worked right now. So this is server 4. This is the same server I'm on with Lomeric, so this is just a different FM. I did get on and talk to them in voice chat last night before I signed off and verify that, yeah, May is kind of the next real work for him here, which is going to be planting cotton, and that will be it. So there isn't anything else that can go my way, but I'm not really that worried about it. First off, you know, kind of keeping the crazy pace I was doing before, where I was spending a lot of hours. I was going to try to throw out a number, but it's a lot of hours in Farming Simulator. Just isn't what I want to be, you know, it isn't what I should be doing. I shouldn't say right now want to be, because I will say, you know, continuing to just share openly how I'm feeling. Like, I'm really enjoying the community here. It's a marked contrast to what was happening in FSN, and I described it to someone who's been chatting with me offline, that it's kind of one of those situations, like, you know, if you're in a bad relationship with someone, but like you don't know any better, and you're kind of like, yeah, everything's pretty good. I mean, there's these things I don't like, but everybody goes through that, right? And then you suddenly get out of that relationship and do something different and realize, like, oh my goodness, it didn't have to be that way. And this thing that I thought was okay, that I knew I didn't enjoy, but I just thought was normal, clearly is not. And it's wonderful now having that. I kind of looked at, I put it in a divorce situation type thing. I think I've talked about that a little bit in one of the early episodes when I moved over to Farmers Only Club. But it's only reinforced that. My experiences here have been much more engaging, much more positive. Might be a little bit unfair. It's just there weren't any in FSN in a lot of cases. I mean, you chat with people on Discord, but the thing that I find most exciting here is, like, people will ask you to do a contract, but a lot of times, like, they're right there working on their farm as well. I mean, the Schwag episodes were a good example. I mean, yeah, one day I got on and I was able to be on when they weren't able to be on, and yes, I spent my time on that farm specifically alone, but there were other people on the server. So again, it's the activity level of the servers. And once again, I would expect this one may be quiet as well, because I think a lot of these farmers do the same type of thing on server 4 here in Hobo's Hollow, because they've just kind of settled into, this is the crop we're working and so forth. Probably not so much as the server I was on with Schwag, where I think they literally do one crop across the map, and they kind of agree on what that's going to be, and then they just provide a lot of that to the community. But because I know there was a little bit when I jumped on with Lomeric that one of the other FMs that was playing something with them was saying they were going to do sunflowers because they made like $1 million this year on sunflowers, and he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to kind of stick with the plan. So we've got oats and cotton, both start with C, but I don't know why corn came out of my mouth, growing. So that will be what we're doing here on this map. But so yeah, this is the field where in FSN where I owned Hobo's Hollow, like field 25's through the trees, and 24 right behind me there. So I'm going away from it, and this was the one that was like, yeah, that's decent, but you're paying for tons of land that you're not using, and so I had kind of stayed away from it from a concept standpoint, like, yeah, I'm not sure that I'm going to go ahead and do this. But this gives me the opportunity to work it, at least from a plowing standpoint, see what things are like. So the nice thing was the FM did have this up here next to the field, so I was able to just jump in and go, which is certainly much appreciated on a contract where I'm getting paid what probably is the minimum wage in this community here. So the other piece that was interesting, I will share, again, kind of as a contrast. I happened to pick up a contract, and not knowing at that point the specifics of who, but what I learned was they were one of the senior admins in the community here, and that turned into probably a voice chat with 5 of us, of which all the others had some sort of staff function here at Farmers Only. Some of them were working on changing up the mods and so forth to work within the community. And once again, I think I kind of had an aha moment of what things could be in a community that works, in my opinion, much better than FSN and the one I came from. And the reality is, what I saw was the automation that allows staff to not screw around with stupid administrative tasks like transferring money and moving equipment would be the obvious ones, allows that energy, time, and creative talent to go to something that just furthers the community in a much, much more important way. It's not just keeping what we have now, keeping the status quo going by just doing the work and keeping funds moving and vehicles moving, albeit at a slow pace. It's also then creating changes to mods that then we can all use and benefit from. So it was really invigorating in that the discussion that I was listening to, I wasn't really participating because I'm not helping, nor do I really have a desire and or capability to help at the level they were talking about, but they were literally debating fine points of mods and should they tweak them this way, should they do whatever. And their energy was focused on that versus, and more importantly, they were on their farms working instead of having to take time that they had available to devote to the community to just sit and jump from server to server and perform transactions, which is obviously dull to anyone. So that's always been one of those things that if when I looked at in FSN, like, hey, would it be worthwhile to volunteer? And I did apply. I have applied in the past to positions and never even heard back, which was also unfortunate. I would think in a community like that, I expect that when I'm applying for a real job. I've got thousands of applicants and they don't know me, but I would hope in a community that it would have been handled a lot nicer and at least you would have gotten a response. And more importantly, like, since I showed interest in whatever the role was that I was applying for, like, let me know, hey, we picked other people because, you don't have this. It just felt very impersonal and like they frankly didn't care about us. And it just reinforced the good old boys club mentality that I think a lot of folks had from the outside looking in. And once again, they're not advertising for any staff positions here. They did say from time to time they will look and they'll show up on the notice boards channel, and we'll all have an opportunity if we're interested. So, the process may be similar here, but what I will say is it was just fun listening to them and frankly fascinating about the level of detail they talk about to try to make sure that something is fair and what it will do to the economy and so forth. And more importantly, from a testing standpoint, I shared in the last few FSN videos the disaster that was crop rotation. And once again, the less than stellar response that we were getting of, well, because people had said, well, are we getting it removed so that we don't have to deal with, I thought I had enough room here, but I keep missing it, and I really would prefer to not have to keep fixing things at the end of the row. And again, I don't think that has anything to do with the snap angle I'm on. I think that has everything to do with just how things line up. So there we go. So it's still moved over a little bit, but I don't know. Hopefully this will work out. But the crop rotation was what I was talking about, and so yeah, there was the situation where it isn't working. It doesn't work in multiplayer. It's just a crap mod for multiplayer. And I can only speculate on what testing was done within FSN, but it was a mess. And then when it was asked about, it was like, well, we're not sure we're going to take it out yet. And we think it's working, so just keep acting as if it's working. Well, once again, that's a really bad response to a group of people that is trying to be effective on their farms and that we're trying to enjoy what we get created in a multiplayer community, which is really the business of running a farming operation. And if you're running a farming operation on fake information, or any operation, it feels miserable unless you're just totally ignorant of reality. Like, again, this is a simulation. This isn't an arcade game. This isn't, hey, make the best of it with NASCAR Heat or something. This is meant to be a simulation. And so it's like when community-wise we're telling you there's a problem, I don't understand why it was keep it in. So I had raised at that point, since I suddenly realized I had a unique opportunity, hey, I'm sitting here with a bunch of folks. So I kind of gracefully said, I came from FSN and we had this crop rotation mod, and I know it's being discussed here. I saw it on the board. This is my feedback. Like, it was pretty miserable. And they're like, oh yeah, we should can that pretty quickly, because they had found what we had, as farm managers, had seen in about 10 minutes after we started using the mod, which again questions what kind of testing actually happened on the FSN side. And they're like, yeah, we're not putting it in because it would be terrible because it doesn't work. But somehow it passed muster within FSN, got put in, and now people are having to live with it and whatever it could potentially be doing. I mean, heck, it could be harming things and we don't know. I mean, that's the problem. We don't know what it's doing, and the solution is, well, doesn't matter that you don't know what it's doing. Just assume it's doing something and act accordingly. Talk about a waste of energy again. So, but all those type of things, the fact that it gives people on staff, like, here they have time to run their farms. They're not having to take 2 or 3 hours when they could be gaming to transfer funds or move equipment onto a server. Again, the thing I don't know, and I'm not at the 18 days. I'm assuming I'm just going to get an automated message that says, hey, you're here, because I know applying is as simple as, again, a Discord command. I think it's like apply FM or something. But what I don't know is then, I assume there's some sort of approval. It's not just automatic, but it may be. It may literally be like you have the money and everything just works, because if they can do money transfers automatically, like, I'm sure they can do the math to figure out, hey, this is what matching funds would be up to the maximum, this, that, and whatever, and hey, you're here it is, and you're installed on your farm. Now, I think it's less than that. I do think there's some manual intervention, because even with auctions, while they take place on Discord, there's people called realtors that then make you available and put you on that and put that field in your farm, for example. So I'm thinking there's a little bit of work that needs to happen, but to me, those are the things that need to happen. It'd be like creating a new user on a company server. Like, you don't just want people issuing commands, creating their own user accounts. Like, there should be some vetting and making sure that rights are set properly and so forth. But so to me, I was hearing a bunch of enthused people where, sure, I've interacted with the folks that are on staff at FSN, but I've very rarely, if ever, actually played on a server with them and seen them playing. Like, we know of them in FSN as staff. Like, they're doing the work, and then I think this is still not going to work right. I don't know. We'll see what it looks like when I come back. Because either way, I was like dancing around, and so if I needed to dance around, I need to dance around. It's not like I saved time on the one end. I think what I need to do is just get a little bit better at going further over than I need to for the line, because then I think there's just more of like a pivot of the plow, but the edge of the plow is further over to the line than this is. So I'm not sure I'm halfway done, but I'm probably pretty close. So, this shouldn't be too terribly bad. None of these fields here are monstrous. So I was kind of figuring, this might be an hour, a little bit more worth of work, and that should be it. because obviously with the large plows, it goes pretty quickly. So I still have to do my daily work for Nav. I had some questions for him yesterday. I haven't seen a response on Discord. I kind of got on late yesterday instead of doing it in the morning like I normally do. So it will be a very short period of time between when I was on and now again, so I'll have less work. But it looks like maybe Nav had spent a bit of time getting straw moved and things like that, because I had come on expecting that I would need to do a bunch of things with the hay and the straw, and I had time because there weren't any real contracts yesterday either, so this is kind of my second day where I'm not making a whole lot of money, but kind of burying the lead a little bit. So with all the work I've done, I'm already over $500,000 in my bank account, and that's in a little bit over a week in the community. So pretty good. Once again, I worked a lot of hours, so you know, folks may not be able to progress that quickly if you get in here, and some of it also depends obviously on, you know, what you get. I certainly got some well-paying contracts that were great. You know, some people were offering bonuses for completing the full harvest with them on top of it. So there were definitely a few things that probably gave me an extra $10,000-$20,000 over even a very lucrative situation. So I think I'm at $538,000. So what that would mean if I went the FM route is I've crossed the threshold. I was thinking I'd be just explaining it, hey, I've finally hit this milestone, but like I've blown past that. And some of it is I did get my annual payment from Lomeric for working this farm once we got into past December here. And that alone was $145,000 for the amount of time I had worked there. So I've got 17, I think it was just a little bit over 17 hours of time that I had spent working for him over the last year. So you can kind of do the math of what that lays out to be per hour. It was a little bit more than we had agreed upon, so I'm certainly happy for that. That was nice to see. But, you know, there may have been some extra kickers thrown in to just make it interesting, you know, or maybe he just rounded it up to 145 when it was 141 or something, and just said, hey, it's just easier to do that and nicer to do that or something. But as I had said, the maximum match that exists for an FM is $375,000. So the good news is I won't leave any money laying on the table, similar to like a 401k match at your job, where I would always advise people, hey, if the company matches 6%, make sure you're putting in at least 6% of your salary, because otherwise you're just leaving free money on the table, which basically is an automatic 100% return. And you're never going to find an investment that's going to do that. I wouldn't even say it's a 100% return, because you're getting money from zero money. So it's not like, hey, I had to put in $1 and get it. Well, I guess that's not true, because it's matching. So, but, yeah. So I missed this here. So let me fix that, and then again, I'm going to try here, because it only seems to be happening on this end, but I think some of it is the fact that there is more, there's more room on the other side. So I'm, darn it. This is why I don't want to miss it, because think about the time I'm sitting here wasting doing this just to get a couple areas of a field plowed. But anyway, again, I want to be thorough, because otherwise you'll have an FM who's like, it was sloppy work, and you know, it's a small community, and I'm sure people talk and will be like, hey, this guy wants to work for me. I know he worked for you. What did you think? So I want a good impression across the community, that's for sure. Sorry about the pause there. Again, if you've watched me for any length of time, you know, sometimes in the morning, of course, also happens other times, but it's more often in the morning where I'll get a little tickle in my throat and have to cough. So if there are breaks where I suddenly go silent, it's probably because I'm muting the microphone and trying not to cough in your ear. You know, I try to eliminate those if they do make it into the recording, but I imagine over hundreds of episodes across various things on the channel, I probably missed a few. But I do my best to try to make it a pleasant experience for you when you're listening, so that it's not just irritating and frankly a bit unprofessional. I'm trying to do something more than just dump raw video out there all the time. There's definitely more of that going on right now in Farmers Only Club, simply because I'm just talking a lot and not jumping back and forth. And because I'm doing contracts, it's a little bit cleaner to just say, hey, I'm going to finish this contract and that's it. And maybe I'll grab one or two more, whatever it is. But there's not a end point where I need to come back in and tell you, let me show you how much money I made off this crop, because I'm not running a farm. I don't make any money like that anymore. I'm just simply getting paid by the hour. So you'll have an idea of, you know, it probably took him 2 to 3 hours to do that job. So at $5,000 an hour, he made $15,000. But that is kind of what it is. So yeah, you know, as I figured, this field is certainly something I knew it would, excuse me, I knew it would be easy to work, because I had looked at it and taken a peek at it at some point just to see, like, would I want to buy this? But yeah, it's just the cost per usable acre. Because you're not going to spend time clearing all these trees or something. And even if you did, I mean, there isn't a whole lot of flat ground anyway. You know, the field on its own is already got enough terrain to make most people happy. You know, I love my terrain, and I certainly think this would be good. But it's just too much money for the little bit of field space you get. So... But, you know, again, the cool thing of doing what I'm doing here on Farmers Only is I get to experience this field, but I didn't have to experience it by purchasing it. So I want to take a peek. So yeah, so this is a good way to tell the difference, too, between FSN and FOC. So these two together are what I owned in FSN, and I was at $2 million. You would see I would be at 2.6, really $2.7 million here. So land is more expensive. I assume that's kind of across the board, but, you know, so we can go back now that I know I'm not across the field yet. You know, $2.5 million almost to buy this thing. So yeah, you're getting a hunk of land, but there's only so much you can get off of that land. You know, and at some point, obviously, this FM's got nearly $2 million right now in their cash fund here. So, you know, once you get to the point, yeah, I can afford it, people buy it. A little bit yawning there, sorry about that. So, probably sounded a little weird as I was finishing those words, but the yawn hit me all of a sudden. But yeah, it was one of those that I kind of wanted things to be efficient, and I was holding out for other areas. So yeah, the other thing that I have certainly enjoyed is the fact that I get to experience things I haven't. Alright, I don't understand how, with what I did, I still have this on it's just this end. Why isn't it happening on the other end? Oy, oy, oy. Alright, well, hopefully I'll get this all. There we go. We did. So, I don't know, maybe I'm picking it up at the other end, because I know I have a little bit, and so maybe it rotates a little more freely when I do that. But like here, I mean, I know I went over and so forth, and then it like didn't line up, because I mean, it is moving back. God, it's doing it again, isn't it? Maybe not. Maybe it did stay pretty much online there, but But I get to experience other maps, and I found that there are a few other maps that, frankly, I didn't think I'd like. That I'm like, you know, I could do this map. So County Line is one of those. We had that in FSN. I looked at it, and I'm like, it's okay, but it's just a really pretty map, and it's certainly, again, got some rolling terrain and so forth, and different shaped fields and things like that. So that is a good alternative as well. So if I become an FM here, it might be one of those that would be a map I would consider as well. So it's nice to know there's a couple things that way, you know, because obviously I think it was Heartland Springs or whatever it was that I worked on pretty early in a contract, where I said, yeah, this feels like no man's land. They explained to me, yep, it is. It's just a Farmers Only Club modification of it to align it with the economy and let them do what they need to do, whatever other changes they need to do that for the map. But I just decided I didn't like it. It was too flat. It was too open. You know, there just weren't any nice sight lines on it. And it just wouldn't have been my thing. It wouldn't get me enthused. So, trying to think that may be about it. I suppose I can turn my lights off now. We're kind of getting to the point of the day where it's nice and bright here. So it's interesting, because a lot of times, like on some other servers I was working, it really didn't get even remotely bright until like 7 a.m. So it's interesting that Hobo's Hollow here, we're seeing at 6:30 a lot more daylight than I would expect. Yeah, I think I'm just getting more room here, because I'm kind of out driving my GPS lines, and maybe that's what's allowing me to not have problems on this end. And obviously the forest is encroaching a lot closer on the other side than it is here. You know, so there have been maps I didn't like. I did a little bit, I think, for someone on Elk Mountain, which I thought was an interesting map as well. And, you know, when I looked at it myself for a farm tour, definitely felt, oh yeah, this could be one that I would do. But there was another, I don't know if it was Poppenberger. Well, actually, I think there might have been some maps I saw in my mods worth noting that intrigued me, that I might be getting mixed up. Because there was an English map, but I think I came across that in mods worth noting, not here in the community, that I'm like, you know, this might be an alternative on my VIP series to go somewhere else, because it was out in the countryside, but I forget what area. But it didn't have all the hedgerows. It was a little bit more open, so it was still a bunch of little fields, but it would still have a different feel, and it was a lot more terrain. I don't know, it just felt like English countryside a little bit more than I'm getting off of Riverview. But other than that, it's kind of where I'm at. So kind of my existence, and obviously what you'll be seeing for the foreseeable future on this series is just me being a farmhand. I'm still thinking, still a little bit before, I'm recording this before the premiere of the first episode, so I'm still kind of getting my head around where I'm heading, but more importantly, it's impacting what my thumbnails may or may not be on those. So a week from today, you know, I would kind of probably be in the middle of, or maybe it would have just ended, because I think it's like an hour and 20-minute video. I'm trying my first ever premiere on the channel, which I've never done. But, and I think all that does is, like, it lets us watch the video together and, you know, have a chat window open on the side so that we can just chat with each other. And that may be fun, so we'll see. It's just the timing worked out. It was just all wonderfully done, where it fit in the schedule. It happened to be on a weekend morning where I can absolutely guarantee I can be there before I have to go off and start with my day, since the videos debut at 7 a.m. So, like, I didn't have to change anything on the production schedule. It just worked out perfectly. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take that opportunity then and do this. And, you know, I may determine I like that more. And if people like it, if there's good feedback, I may be like, you know, maybe I do it more often. I've got some ideas in my head, but before I say them and people are all excited about them, because it would be relatively frequent with what I'm thinking, I'm just thinking I might need to ease into it, because trying to commit something on a weekly basis or whatever is a bit of a challenge. Because I did have someone, when I was talking, I think, to those admins and explaining, you know, at some point in the conversation, it came up that I shared, yeah, I've got a YouTube channel that I share videos off of and so forth, and told them who it was, but so they could go check it out, give them the channel name, and but also explained, like, this is what I do. I kind of just record, but when I'm talking with someone, or even when I'm text chatting, I usually don't include that, just for privacy and to avoid any potential problems down the line and so forth. But one of them was like, well, wouldn't it be easier if you live stream, because then you have, like, the chat and whatever, so there's something going on. Because I think what they were thinking is I was just recording, playing by myself, and it was just kind of running up and down the field and nothing going on. But I explained, no, I just record kind of up to the point where I don't have anything to say anymore, and I also edit things out in case something's a little goofy, and so that if we did start chatting, like, I would cut that out of the video. And of course I explained to them, like, at that point when we were in voice chat, I had already grabbed what I needed for that day earlier, and I wasn't doing any recording then. And so they were like, oh, okay, you know, that makes more sense. But they weren't sure, because they thought it was, you know, maybe more work. Where if you know, and I get what they're saying, because if you live stream, like, you're not recording, rendering, and then editing. Like, the live stream's just on YouTube, and then it just turns into a video. So you don't have any production work. So I think he was thinking I was just taking raw footage and just turning around and rendering it and uploading it. And he's like, well, you know, it's already uploaded. Like, it would be easier. But it made sense once I explained it. With that in mind, you know, we'll just have to see, because the premieres aren't a live stream. It's different. But they're kind of an in-between state, it seems like, where I can still interact with the community, but I get to choose, like, hey, this video is going to become a premiere. And certainly the first episode of a brand new series, certainly a brand new major series, because this channel, I mean, at the end of the day, the linchpin, the cornerstone of why this channel even is and got started, is this multiplayer stuff. Like, I've got by far the most episodes in multiplayer compared to anything else I've got. And that's just the nature of the beast. So, you know, what better thing to give the first premiere treatment to on the channel than something in that space. So that is what I'll be doing. Obviously, you're not going to see this video till after that happens, so plugging it or whatever doesn't make a whole lot of sense, other than, I guess, if you come to it later, hey, you know, go watch it, see how it turned out. Obviously, now it's just a video. It's not a premiere, because we're going to be probably more than a month beyond that. And, you know, who knows when you stumble upon this video and hear that. So, with that, obviously I've got a little bit here left to go, but I don't like to overextend my welcome with folks where I just am doing nothing of value and don't have anything of my thoughts to share with you. So I'm kind of at that point now where I know it's time to call it a day. So I will obviously definitely go do the work for Nav. So that'll earn me another 5,000 for another day's work over there. I guess the only thing I did have, he had moved the clothing trailer. So when I was on last night, that was one of the things I had asked him was, are you going to bring the trailer back? Because otherwise I don't have anywhere to put those, and I'm not quite sure where he went, because he, went ahead and sold things. So I could kind of scavenge around on the map and see if I could find it. I just don't honestly know that I know the equipment well enough. I just know I've got kind of lowboy trailers that have a little bit of a step, and the trailer I was doing that with was perfectly flat. So, but because it had an auto load function on the pallets, I just wanted to make sure that the right trailer got back, because it seems like we just let that run for the year, and then he sells clothes once a year at the peak. Because again, he had told me yesterday, or the day before, I think, that evening was the day he was going to do it. So when I went in yesterday, that was the day after, and late in the day after, so I was frankly surprised that it wasn't there. But we'll see what happens. Maybe he went ahead and just put it there, and I'll find it there this morning after I'm done here, but I'm probably got another 15 to 30 minutes to get the other side done. But no, I think this worked well. I mean, I think 125 would have worked well. I think any angle works well. There does seem to be a lot of, hey, let's work weird angles in this community as well, where sometimes that makes sense, but like anything else, I just take a look at the field, and I think this will work, and I think this straight 180 has worked just fabulously. I certainly don't feel like I'm wasting a lot of time or whatever, and that something that would have been changed by going at 125 degrees versus 180. But with all that said, I think I'm going to wrap things up. Just do a little bit of the YouTube housekeeping. If you haven't liked the video, please go ahead and do so. Helps with the algorithm, and it would be a wonderful, wonderful compliment if you would go ahead and subscribe as well. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, and any help you can do for that would be great. And as I shared in my PSA, and I got a good laugh out of the admins when I talked about it, because they knew where I was going right away when I said, who came up with this name? Because you get some inappropriate searches for Farmers Only Club on YouTube. So, but yeah, if you're a younger viewer, or you're a parent of a younger viewer who's watching with them and seeing, hey, is this channel appropriate? The channel content is appropriate, but what you may do to have to find the channel on YouTube search might not get you things that aren't appropriate. So subscribe to my channel so that your direction is simply you go to your subscriptions, find the Mature Simmer, and go see what I have, instead of searching for Farmers Only Club on YouTube and getting things you really don't want. So with that, I will see you next time.